Rassie Rasmus and the Springboks have just named the 23-man side to take on Italy in the second test. And to be honest, it's a very interesting side. There's a lot to be discussed here. There was a lot that happened in that first test match that people sort of wanted rectified. I'm going to break it all down here. If you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. This channel has grown so much in the last month. So welcome to all the new people. If you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to deliver you the best Springbok content possible. Leave this video a like, and as always, drop your opinions on the team down in the comments. Let's get into it. So there is your Springbok 23 to take on Italy this weekend at Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. Now, obviously, you'll see Willie le Roux on the poster, and that is because it's Willie le Roux's 100th test match for the Springboks. Now, I did brief this in my video yesterday where I sort of broke down my 23-man Springbok side that I thought would be taking the field against Italy. It's there and thereabouts. There's quite a few discrepancies, and there's a lot of changes in this team from Rassie Rasmus. He kind of said his part after the first game against Italy that there were going to be a lot of changes. He had originally already made the selection for the second test, but after the performance in that second half, he did say that there would be a lot of changes. There would be a lot of guys that were maybe starting on the bench, that would be starting, a couple guys that performed well, that would keep their spots. We're going to go through all of it. There's a lot to unpack here because Rassie Rasmus has made a plethora of changes in this team. Now, I'm just going to say it now. A lot of people are going to have a problem that Willie le Roux is starting. But for me, I think if you're Rassie Rasmus, you kind of want to get Willie le Roux's 100th cap and then kind of move past Willie. I don't think he's at the standard anymore that he was a couple of years ago. And I think we do have better options at 15, be Damian Willemse or Apelele Fassi. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what Rassie Rasmus does with Willie le Roux, but it's deserved. He deserves 100 test matches for the Springboks. He's been a great ambassador for the Springboks over the past decade or so, and he definitely deserves this. Now, let's dive in to the starting lineup. In the front row, we got Thomas du Toit, Malcolm Marx, and Volko Low. Now, I did say in yesterday's video that I do think they'll start resting Ox a little bit. Rassie has said that players won't be playing more than 8 or 9 games this season. So we do have to manage a guy like Ox who can start every game. We know what he's going to deliver. He's going to deliver dominance up front. We're going to get scrum penalties, but we need to save him for those games against New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, Ireland, France. It's a packed schedule this year, and I think we're going to see Rassie Rasmus rest a lot of our very, very key players against the smaller opposition in Italy, in Georgia. But Thomas du Toit gets a start, Malcolm Marx and Volko Low. Now, I think Volko was absolutely phenomenal for the Springboks last week. I mean, you just had to look at the scrum dominance that the Springboks had. There were 13 scrums. The Springboks didn't look under pressure in any of those scrums. There was a tight head. So Volko deservedly gets another start. Thomas du Toit is also one of those guys who've had 1 or 2 great seasons for their club, being Bath, and it's good to see him starting. And then Malcolm, in my video yesterday, I picked Marnus van der Merwe. I think this is a good time to test him. Malcolm didn't have a great game against Italy last week, so I do understand Rassie giving him another chance to sort of rectify his mistakes. Our lineout definitely wasn't up to scratch last week, and that blame has to fall on Malcolm as well as Bongi Munambe, who came on in that second half. But a very, very strong front row. Then into the lock department, and this is going to be a controversial call, and there's going to be a lot of comments on this video about Salman Murat and him captaining. Salman Murat and Ruan Nokia pair up in the 4 and 5 positions. Now, look, do I think Salman Murat is the caliber that we need in a Springbok top? If I'm being frank, probably not. He is a very good lock and he plays very good rugby for the Stormers. He just, in my opinion, hasn't made that step up to Springbok level yet. And I'm going to be interested to see how many opportunities he gets this year for the Springboks. Rassie Rasmus clearly seems to back him, and even making him captain is massive. He captained for the first time last year against Portugal in Bloemfontein. I was there for that game, and we ended up absolutely trouncing Portugal, which, I mean, you expect. Ruan Nokia in that number 5 jersey, I think he was one of our finds of the season last year for the Springboks, and I love to see him back in the starting line. It's also interesting because the Bulls have been playing him in that 7 jersey, so he can also cover that 7 spot, much like Pieter-Steph du Toit. Then 6, 7, and 8, and very surprisingly that Sia doesn't start this game because Rassie Rasmus has said that he's fit, but he's given Marco van Staden another opportunity. I don't have any problems with that. I just did expect to see Sia somewhere in this 23-man lineup, and he's not even playing. Wonder if we're going to see him back against Georgia or if we're only going to see him in the Rugby Championship. Very interesting. Then 7, back from injury, Pieter-Steph du Toit. Now, this was a big talking point in yesterday's video, is that Vincent Chichuka has been playing some phenomenal rugby for the Springboks. I don't think you could ask more of him in those first 2 test matches against the Barbarians and Italy. He was probably overall, out of both test matches, the best player that the Springboks had on the field if you combine all the minutes that the players played. But I mean, you take Vincent Chichuka out and you bring in Pieter-Steph du Toit, arguably the best rugby player in the world. It's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be up to speed after this injury or if it's going to take him 10 to 20 minutes to sort of get into the game. And then Jasper Visser had a phenomenal game against Italy last week. So I'm glad to see that he retains his position, because I do think Jasper, with Cameron Hanekom out, Gerardo Augustus, Ulrich Loh, I do think Jasper Visser is still our number 1 pick, and he showed it last week against Italy. So a packed starting forward pack for the Springboks. Very interesting, that lock combination. I maybe thought they would go with someone else, maybe even giving Kobus Visser a start in that lock position. Archie Snyman nowhere to be seen. Franco Mostert nowhere to be seen. So it's interesting, and it kind of just shows how much depth we do have in that lock position. Then into the back line, and a very chop and changed back line. In at 9 is Grant Williams. Now, Morne van den Berg has had 2 phenomenal test matches for the Springboks against Barbarians as well as Italy, but it is good to see Grant Williams back. I think if we look back on last season, we'll reflect and say that Grant Williams was probably our number 1 scrum off option. He's back from injury, and I'm glad to see him starting. You cannot start Grant Williams if you don't start Sasha or Manie Libbok. I know last year Rassie Erasmus preferred to start Grant Williams with Handré Pollard, but I do think we're kind of moving away from Handré Pollard a little bit. I've said it in previous videos that I think he's a little bit one-dimensional, and Manie Libbok and Sasha give you those extra options at 10 on attack as well as within the back line. So it's going to be interesting to see how Manie kicks, because that's always what anyone has to say about Manie Libbok. He kicked 5 out of 5 against the Barbarians, and I think with his new kicking style, it's going to be a lot better for him. He's sort of kicking how a Percy Montgomery used to kick, that sort of one-step power into the ball, and it seems to be working for him. So 9 and 10, Grant and Manie is a lethal combination. Into the centers, Andre Esterhuizen and Kainan Moody. Now, a lot has been said about where's Kainan going to play. Is it going to be wing? Is it going to be outside center? Jake White seemed to play more on wing, tried him at 13. The Springboks have played him at wing, have also trialed him at 13. But it seems like he's going to provide that extra depth in that 13 position, because it is looking a little bit thin with Lukanya injured. We only really have Jesse Creel and Ethan Hooker in the current squad. I was expecting Ethan Hooker to get a start, but he is on the bench. I think it's a powerful 12-13 combination. I'm interested to see how Kainan Moody goes. We know what we're going to get from Andre Esterhuizen. Then the back 3. Makazole Mapimpi, Edwil van der Merwe, and Willie Leroux. Now, I did think we were going to rest Kirtley and Cheslin. I thought Kirtley might get a start just because of how well he performed last week. I'm glad we're resting both of them, because there are a lot bigger test matches coming up that we need them fit for. Makazole never has a bad game in a Springbok top. I don't think you can name one time that Makazole has ever had a bad game. And then it's phenomenal to see Edwil van der Merwe back. He burst onto the scene last year against Wales, had a phenomenal test match, then ended up getting injured. So I'm glad to see Edwil van der Merwe back. And then we got Willie Leroux in that number 15 jersey. And I mean, say what you're going to say, but it's great that he's got to 100 test matches. Yes, we would prefer Apelele Fassi or Damian Willemse, but for this test match, we need to give Willie Leroux his flowers. Then, into the replacements. We've gone for a controversial 5-3 bench split, and I can see why Rassie Erasmus has done it. In the front row, no real surprises here. Jan-Hendrik Wessels, Ox, and Asenati. Maybe the biggest surprise is that Jan-Hendrik Wessels is the replacement hooker. And Rassie Erasmus has spoken about this, in that Jan-Hendrik Wessels is a special player because he can play hooker as well as prop. And now we're going to see him come on at 16. He had 2 good games against the Barbarians in Italy. He's been scrummaging perfectly for the Bulls. Him and Volker have been dominating the URC in scrum stats. And it's interesting to see him in that number 16 jersey, because if you add him to that stock, then we've got Malcolm Marx, Bongi, Marnus van der Merwe, as well as Jan-Hendrik Wessels. So watch out for that when he comes on with the bomb squad. Then into the lock department, we've gone for Kobus Visser, who will be getting his debut. Asenati and Klabakanya will also be getting his official debut. And the Visser brothers will hopefully be on the pitch at the same time, Jasper Visser and Kobus Visser. Our final Lucy is Evan Roos. Now, he's probably going to come on at 8, which makes me maybe think that Kobus and Jasper won't be on the field at the same time. But again, he could move into a flanker position. We never know with Rassie Erasmus. But that's the 5 forwards. Then the 3 backs, Kobus Reinach, Sasha Feinberg, Ngumazulu, and Ethan Hooker. Now, Ethan Hooker has been named here in the number 23 jersey, which I do find quite interesting. The last time Andre Esterhuizen was named in a 23 jersey, he came on and played flank for the Springbok. So I would like to see Ethan Hooker in at 13. He'll probably come on at wing, but he could come on at flank. You just never know with Rassie Erasmus. And then Kobus, good to see him back. Will probably replace Grant Williams quite early on. I would expect Grant to play about 45 minutes and then bring on Kobus. And then Sasha, it depends. They might bring him on at 15. They might bring him on at 12. They might bring him on at 10. I don't see Valilaroo playing a full 80 minutes. So you got to ask the question who's going to come on and play in that 15 jersey. Lots of questions, lots of changes. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Leave this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.